Have you ever wondered how a tiny project blows up and becomes a global giant like Netflix or Amazon? Well, the secret isn't magic, it's architecture. Today, we're gonna go on that exact journey. We are building a web service from the ground up, starting with a single server and scaling it step by step to handle millions of users, all by finding what breaks and then fixing it. So here's the game plan. We'll start simple with just one server doing all the work. Then we'll strategically split up the workload, balance traffic, add caches for speed, and eventually we'll even have to shatter the database itself. It's going to be a fun ride. All right, let's dive right in. Every massive system you use today, really, think about it. They all started small, and by small, I mean everything is running on one single machine. The web server, the database, all the application logic, it's all crammed into one box. And the flow for a single user is, super straightforward. You type mysite.com into your browser. DNS, which is kind of like the internet's phone book, looks up the server's address. Your browser connects directly to that address, and boom, the server sends the web page right back to you. It's simple, it's clean, and it works perfectly for a little while. But here's the thing. What happens when you go from a handful of users to thousands or tens of thousands? That one little server gets totally overwhelmed. It's trying to talk to users and juggle all the data at the same time, and it just can't keep up. It becomes our first major bottleneck. So what do? Well, our server is clearly doing way too much work. Now, we could just buy a bigger, beefier server, but that's really just kicking the can down the road. The much smarter, more scalable approach is to split up the jobs, and the first logical split is to pull the database out and give it its own dedicated machine. And by doing this, we create two distinct layers, a web tier that handles all the user requests, and a data tier that just worries about storing information. This is a huge win because now we can scale them independently. If the website gets a ton of traffic, we can beef up the web servers. If the database is the problem, we can upgrade that server. They no longer hold each other back. Okay, so we've solved one problem, but our system is still incredibly fragile. We still only have one web server, and if that one machine goes down for any reason, poof, our entire site is offline. That, my friends, is a classic single point of failure. So how do we solve for that single point of failure? Well, instead of just making our one server bigger and bigger, we're gonna add more servers. And this is where we really get into the crucial difference between scaling up and scaling out. So look, we have two fundamental choices here. We can scale up, which just means buying a single monstrously powerful server. It's simple, but it's expensive. And you eventually hit a hard limit. The much better long-term play is to scale out. That means adding more cheaper servers to a big pool. This gives us both power and redundancy. Now, the absolute key to making horizontal scaling work is this thing right here, a load balancer. You can think of it like a traffic cop for the internet. It sits right in front of all our web servers, and as requests from users come in, it just figures out which server is free and sends the traffic there. And this is where the real magic happens. If one of our web servers crashes, no big deal. The load balancer just stops sending traffic to it and redirects everyone to the healthy servers. The users, they don't notice a thing. And if we suddenly get a huge traffic spike, we just spin up a few more web servers, add them to the pool, and the load balancer starts using them immediately. So our web tier is now super resilient and scalable. That's fantastic. But you can see where this is going, right? We've just moved the single point of failure. Now our entire system hinges on this one database server. To fix this, we use the same idea as before. with a technique called database replication. Basically, we create copies or replicas of our database. So if the main one fails, a backup is ready to take over instantly. All right, at this point, our system is pretty reliable. It can handle failures. But as we get more and more users, it's starting to feel slow. Why? Because almost every single time a page loads, we have to go ask the database for information, and that is by far the slowest part of our whole setup. So, to solve for speed, we introduce a cache. Think of a cache as super fast, short-term memory for our application. It sits right between our web servers and our database, and its only job is to remember the answers to common questions, so we don't have to bother the slow database every single time. And the logic is actually pretty simple. When a request for data comes in, the web server checks the cache first. If the data is there, we call that a cache hit. It gets returned instantly, super fast. If it's not there, a cache miss, okay, no problem. We go to the database, grab the data, but on the way back, we store a copy in the cache. That way, the next person who asks for the same thing gets a nice speedy cache hit. We can actually take this whole caching idea even further, especially for our static files. You know, things like images, videos, and code that don't change very often. For that, we use a content delivery network or a CDN. It's basically a global network of cache servers. So when a user in Tokyo requests an image, they get it from a server in Tokyo, not from our main server halfway across the world. It is a massive, massive speed boost. So our system is fast, it's reliable, but there's a really subtle and dangerous problem hiding in our web tier. Right now, when you log into the site, your session information, the fact that you are logged in, might be stored on just one of our web servers. If that specific server goes down, you get logged out. And that is a terrible user experience. And this brings us to the critical difference between a stateful architecture, where servers have to remember individual users, and a stateless one. In a stateless world, no server holds on to any unique user data. This is a game changer because it means any web server can handle a request from any user at any time. Total flexibility. The solution is actually pretty elegant. We just pull that state, that session data, out of the individual web servers and move it into a fast shared data store that all of the web servers can talk to. This completely decouples our users from any single machine, making our web tier truly robust and ready to scale. Okay, we have scaled our web tier to the moon. We can add more servers. We've got caches. We've got a global CDN. But look at the diagram. All of that traffic, all of those millions of requests are still funneling down into one massive master database. We have officially reached the final boss of scaling bottlenecks. We just can't keep making one database server bigger forever. So the ultimate technique for scaling the data tier is something called sharding, and it's exactly what it sounds like. We shatter our one giant database into lots of smaller, faster, more manageable pieces called shards. So how does the system know which shard has your data? We use something called a sharding key. For example, we could take every user's ID number and run a really simple math formula on it. The result of that formula tells us exactly which one of our smaller databases holds that user's information. It's a beautifully simple and effective way to distribute that load. So let's just quickly recap this whole journey. We went from one fragile server to a global resilient system. And the core principles are all right here. You've got to keep your web tier stateless. You need to build redundancy at every single layer with things like load balancers and database replicas. You have to cache aggressively and use a CDN. And finally, you scale your databases with charting. The other things here like message queues and monitoring, well, those are the next steps you'd take to make this whole thing even more bulletproof. You see, building a system that can handle this kind of scale is a continuous process. It's an endless game of finding the next weakest link and making it stronger. We solved a ton of problems today, but in doing so, we've also created a much more complex system, which leaves us with one final question for you to think about. In this new complex architecture, what do you think is the next thing to break?